Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Once again, we got a great video here today. We're going to break down the top 5 MCU villains. There's been a lot of villains and a lot of Marvel movies inside the cinematic universe. And today I'm going to go over my personal top 5 favorite villains in the MCU. But before we get into the top 5, let's get to a couple honorable mentions. The first honorable mention is the Mandarin from the Shang-Chi movie. Now, I know he's no longer referred to as the Mandarin, but that is the character that he is playing. The character was very, very well done, had a lot of motive, a lot of depth, and we got to see the person behind the madness. This is something Marvel has been trying to do a lot more lately, and that's make their villains more relatable so people can actually see where they're coming from, even though a lot of times they're kind of batshit nuts. The next honorable mention is, of course, Bucky the Winter Soldier. Winter Soldier was basically the main villain and antagonist to Steve Rogers in Captain America Winter Soldier, and although he becomes his best friend again later on in other films, that doesn't take away from the fact that Winter Soldier was one bad SOB. And the final honorable mention is, of course, the Vulture from Spider-Man Homecoming. Say what you want about that movie, God knows I will, but the one thing that I thoroughly enjoy with that film is, of course, Michael Keaton's portrayal of the Vulture. They actually do something different with the Vulture, and I like what they did, and overall Keaton's performance just makes it something very lovable. Well, now that all the honorable mentions are out of the way, let's jump into the top 5 MCU villains. Now, I'm gonna note right now that my 2 and 3 might be some controversy. I'm just saying, I have a feeling there's gonna be some backlash on my number 2 and 3, but we'll get to that when I get to that. Right now, let's jump into number 5. Number 5 is, of course, Loki. Loki, a lot of people might not consider him a villain now because, like, he's such a popular character and he's basically been a good guy for a while, but Loki started off as a villain in the first Thor movie, and he was the first ever major bad villain in the Avengers movie. So Loki is one of those characters that has a lot of character development, a lot of motives. You see where he's coming from, and overall he was a fantastic villain when he started out, even though now he's doing time travel and all that great stuff, and he's not really considered a villain anymore, but he still does kind of mischievous thing. Coming in at number 4 is Hela from Thor Ragnarok. I really enjoyed her character a lot, and let's be honest, Cate Blanchett playing her, that also helped as well. But I really enjoyed Hela's whole storyline of her and her father Odin doing all this crazy crap, and then Odin kind of gets old. You know how old people get, and they start to develop a conscience. They're like, I can't do this no more. And Hela's like, what the heck, Dad? Like, we've been doing this whole time. And he just kind of casts her away, and then she finally breaks free, and then finally she just kind of like continues on to the madness that her and her father did. But I like that dynamic. I like the fact that she's being sealed away for years and years and years. And I like those kind of stories. I mean, King Piccolo, guys, it's great when your villain has been sealed away for thousands and thousands of years. It gives them more motives to stretch and let loose when they finally get out. Coming in at number 3 is Killmonger. Now, I fully said that my 3 and 2 will be controversial, but just kind of hear me out. Killmonger is a fantastic villain. Michael B. Jordan is a fantastic actor. Michael B. Jordan in the Killmonger character is a well-developed, well-thought-out character. Here's the character that dealt with a lot of suffering as a kid, where his uncle murdered his own father, and this was basically the story of Killmonger, you know, rising above all that, training to become this death machine so he can get revenge on his uncle and his uncle's son T'Challa. It was a great story, and I really like Killmonger. And for the longest time, Killmonger was my number 2, hands down, no question about it. The way that Michael B. Jordan plays the character, the way Ryan Coogler directs the actor and writes the development of that character, Killmonger is a fantastic character. Nothing can be said about that. But my number 2 comes in a little bit higher for different reasons. Coming in at number 2 is Scarlet Witch Wanda Maximoff. Never thought I was going to have Wanda on my top 5 villain list, but here we are. Yes, she is a villain, and the reason why I put her over Killmonger is she has a little more character development. She is introduced into Age of Ultron, Avengers Age of Ultron, as a villain. She gets the little pep speech from Hawkeye, one of my favorite scenes in all of the MCU. She becomes a good guy. She helps the Avengers stop Ultron Ultron, and then we start to see her development as a person. We see what she goes through Captain America Civil War, where she accidentally blows up like this building, and it creates this whole Sokovia Accord. The Avengers are split in two over the actions of her, and from there we see her downfall. We see the downfall of Wanda Maximoff as she has to kill her own lover in order to try to save the universe, to save the galaxy from extinction, and that put a toll on her, so much so that by the end of the events of Avengers Endgame, she created her own scenario, sealing off an entire town, bringing back her love of her life, making kids with magic. She was going down a darker path, and by the time we get to Doctor Strange, the Multiverse of Madness, she has just went completely AWOL. She is no longer the person that we once knew. She is now back to being that sadistic psychopath that we were introduced in Avengers Age of Ultron. The events of WandaVision, the events of Civil War, the events of Avengers Infinity War and Endgame has all led up to this point, and she goes on a massive killing spree to the likes that many of us have never seen in the MCU. And from those points alone, I have to say Wanda wins slightly over Killmonger. Sorry, just gotta go there. And of course, number one is none other than Thanos himself. First introduced in the post-credit scene of the very first Avengers, Thanos is a character that was very much being teased all the way up until Avengers Infinity War. He also appeared in a much larger role in the first ever Guardians of the Galaxy movie, and we have gotten character development through phase 1 through 3 of the MCU leading up to Avengers Infinity War. This is a character who feels that in order to save the entire universe, he has to eliminate half the population so the other half can grow and survive. He's seen the effects of what happens with overpopulation on his own planet, and when he came up with the plan to eliminate half the population, he was branded a madman, a mad titan. And from that point forward, Thanos came up with the idea to collect all the Infinity Stones, because with one snap he can wipe out half of the population, making the universe a better place. And even though in the end Thanos was foiled by the Avengers, Thanos was the most anticipated villain in the MCU. The Russo brothers helped flesh out the character, and Thanos then is now the best villain still to date in the MCU, but that could change as we're heading in to the next phases of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Well, everyone, that is my top 5 MCU villains. I want to know what you guys think. Be sure to list your top 5 in the comment box below. Be sure to smash that like and subscribe button. And until next time, as always, I'm Robert Storms, and that's my opinion.